and welcome. The Atheist Experience is live November 10th, 2002. Thank you for joining us. The show is sponsored by Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. ACA has its weekly meetings every Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. at Hot Jumbo Bagels, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at the Longhorn Room of First Cafeteria North Cross Mall. And our opening, the image that opened our show today was a photograph from the Godless Americans March on Washington. And Jeff Jones here, our guest, is one of our members who was among 8 ACA members who went to that historic event. That is a historic event despite the fact that the mainstream news media utterly ignored it, but it was historic all the same. And, okay, that was interesting. So Ashley Perrien is my co-host. I'm Martin Wagner, your host. How you doing? See, what other events are going on? Godless Gamers takes place every Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. at the home of Russell and Virginia Glasser. And Atheist Happy Hour is a Thursday evening event. It's about 7:30 p.m., 7:30 more, at Antonio's Tex-Mex near the intersection of I-35 and Highway 183. The Nonprofits is our weekly internet radio show hosted by Jeff D. And it plays on the atheistnetwork.com website. Just point your browser there. It is an MP3 stream. It plays at 2 o'clock in the afternoons every Saturday. And there is a live chat room feature where you can interact with the show. And it's an hour and a half of news analysis and, yelling and screaming. And it's all kinds of fun. And University Atheists and Agnostics is an organization founded by our very own Charles Tabaney. It is an official UT student organization for atheists, so if you are a UT, they're on the monitor, UT student or faculty member, there's an email address for information, and they meet every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock p.m. in 310 Parlin. So there we are. So that's announcements. Okay, what else is going on? Some belated Halloween news. Now, last week's show, we talked a whole bunch about our little adventure in hell.
Yes.
Going to Halloween, and that was a very strange experience. But just gotten word now during the week that some other members of ACA who decided to do something intelligent with their time went out, instead of trick-or-treating, they did this canning thing.
Yes.
They went out and collected cans. They went out
trick-or-canning.
Trick-or-canning, where they went out to homes and collected cans for, I guess, a Capital Food Bank or something. Capital area.
So.
Capital Area Food
Yeah,
Bank.
Capital Area Food Bank, and I'm told, and Karen, who's been on the show many times, she sort of got all that rolling, and they collected what, a couple hundred cans, something like that.
I think it was 130 pounds.
130 pounds. So
yes,
like by the weight.
Of food.
130 pounds.
Yeah, I think they measure it by the weight or something like that.
Wow.
I'm not too sure exactly, but it was like 130 pounds, and they said they average it out to a couple pounds per meal or something like that, or not even that. So, it was a fair bit of food that they got.
Wow, well that is very impressive, and so congratulations on Karen for putting that together. And so just a little go into gloat mode for 2 seconds. So while the fine folks at Promised Land Church were putting on their little icky gore fest to terrify people into converting to their faith
for $10 a piece.
Yeah, a group of atheists was actually out in the community doing something worthwhile for people. Okay, so just think about that the next time some fundamentalist Christian tells you that they're the only people in the world who have morals.
And other wacky atheists were at the church giving them $10.
Yeah, what were we thinking? Just the old Three Stooges thing. All right, well, that was fun. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show today.
You're quite welcome. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, now you're actually you've been a member for quite a long time. It's your first, and you've helped out on the show, but this is your first time to actually come on the air.
So first time this side of the camera. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, it's about time. Good. About time we popped your cherry on that score. So we got that going on. Now,
Interesting terminology.
yeah, well, happens to us all. It's sooner or later. Good. Well, you have, I'm sure, just reams and reams of very entertaining stories to tell us about your trip to Washington with many of our fellow members last weekend.
Yep.
And so we are going to get to that. And that photo that we opened up our program with is part of an extensive slideshow, too. They took a whole bunch of digital photos, and we've got it all of our technical whiz kids in the control room hooked it all up and to a laptop to the control panel. And so we're going to go through the slideshow as part of the while you talk about that. But first, it's time for news. What's happening in the world?
Okay. Really just have two quick stories, both of them actually updates.
Oh, okay.
First one really quick, we had the story last week about the Boy Scout who was told, they found out that he was an atheist. They said you have 1 week to convert. 1 week to find yourself a god or get out. Well, he didn't, so he's out. They have officially kicked him out now. He is going to appeal it and stuff like that. He's going to go through the channels. But yes, they made the official decision that, sorry, no God, no scout.
All right. So the Boy Scouts of America now stands revealed as a complete fraud.
Yep.
It is.
37 badges, 1,000 hours of community service.
Yeah.
Don't amount to much.
Yeah. It must. Yeah. So.
Not to that organization, at least.
Yes.
I couldn't help but think about the Mel Brooks movie, History of the World, and the Inquisition scene, where basically they're talking to Jews. Have you converted yet? No. Well, they throw them in the pool. You got 1 week to convert, or you're in the pool, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How good of a conversion would that actually be?
Yeah.
To a true Christian or something like that, a week later, okay, sure, yeah, I now believe in God.
Well, that's just the phenomenally dumb thing to say to him. I mean, it's just, what do they think? I
want to show how ridiculous it was. They said, well, you can call nature God, or you can broaden the definition as long as you want, as long as you say something is God.
Yeah.
And
what's the point?
what's the point?
Yeah.
You can broaden the definition of God into irrelevant.
This whole idea of that it's just absolutely, religion has this idea that is this thing that is just fundamentally necessary to everyone, that is completely indispensable, that you can't not have some supreme invisible pal, running your life or something.
Yeah.
And the idea of just not having that kind of a concept is not something that they even entertain.
Yeah.
It just, religion is the thing that thinks everyone has to have it. And it's like, well, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been told several times, you got to believe in something. Well,
Not really.
no.
Well, it depends.
On
I mean,
those terms.
well, no, but something supernatural?
Yeah,
That's the implication.
Yeah, that is, right. I mean, look, I believe in all kinds of, I believe in, fairness and human dignity and, the rights of, man and all that kind of stuff. But, you got to believe in something invisible and ghostly and weird metaphysical, and no, I think not.
Not me.
Nope. Cool. So, poor kid's kicked.
Yep.
And so he's appealing, and, well,
and
I mean,
who knows what that'll turn into, but
probably not.
it'll be interesting. Yeah, unfortunately, probably it won't get him back on or anything, but.
Well, I don't know that it's
it would be
unfortunate
nice.
now. I mean, I think the BSA has revealed itself to be, just not a very nice group of people to be involved with.
Yeah.
A lot of his fellow scouts, I'll grant you, have sort of risen above the group itself. I mean, they've been supportive of him, but I think that this guy, this kid, what is his name?
I want to say Daryl or something.
Yeah, Darren.
Darren Lambert.
Yeah, Darren. Yeah, that's it.
That sounds right.
Darren. He has shown, I think, more integrity and courage and just guts.
Morality.
Yeah, and he's shown morality. Exactly. Yeah, he's shown.
Not to come up, for sticking up for what he says.
Daryl.
Oh, it's Daryl Lambert.
Daryl Lambert, not
Okay.
Darren Lambert.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Daryl.
But also to stand up for what he believes, and also not to just bow over, to stay in it and just say, okay, fine, nature's my God.
Yeah.
So, but just to stick with it and be true to himself.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Good for him.
It's called principles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for you, Darren. All right. What else? Darren.
Sorry.
Yeah. Derrick.
All right.
Donald. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next news story. I thought. Well,
Everybody says I'm so bad with names, but I mean, with me, it's true. I don't remember my own name half the time.
Okay. Another one. We also had the story last week of the ossuary that was found. It was one of these old bone boxes that they used to make, and essentially when people were buried after a couple of years, sometimes they would dig them up, take their bones, put them in a box, and that was kind of like their new burial spot. Usually when land was at a premium, that type of thing. Well, they had found one, and the inscription on the side in Aramaic was Jacob, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus, was the inscription on the side of it.
Okay. Was it James? James.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was James.
Yeah.
Which was actually kind of like the English translation of Jacob.
This is like the show where we get everyone's
So.
names wrong. This is like, Darren, brother of Jesus. Okay. Anyway, yeah, it said James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Right?
Exactly. Basically, they had dated the box and stuff like that and found that it was, around about the correct time period.
Right.
And the writing on it was pretty much correct, for the time period, until they had somebody with, credentials look at it. And essentially what they're saying now is that the second part of it was actually added on at a much later date. Originally, it was just James, son of Joseph.
Okay.
The part after that was written in a different style, in a slightly different form of the language, at a later date.
Okay, now who is the scholar who Chuck investigated this?
The scholar, Australia Inscription was a fake. My turn. I'm sure they have the name in here, but I'm not seeing it right now.
Is it this person here, Rochelle Altman? Is that the author of the?
I would expect so.
Yeah,
believe so.
The author of the piece, Rochelle Altman.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because yes. So Rochelle I. Altman,
Okay.
who has done a lot of study on these and has done translations and that type of thing, has looked at it and said the bone box is original. The first inscription, which is in Aramaic, Jacob, son of Joseph, is authentic. The second half of the inscription, brother of Jesus, is a poorly executed fake and a later addition. Please note that the fraud is so blatant that I did not bother to go into extreme detail on whether the faked edition is supposed to be Hebrew or Aramaic. There were just so many problems with the translation and mixtures of the two that they didn't even look at it that closely.
Wow. Well, it must be curious. My first question when this was originally announced was, where's this thing been for 2,000 years?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
There's no history of ownership. There's no line of evidence there.
Yeah. There's no real way to trace it archaeologically.
And like say they had, the style of the lettering. They have, like letter A, I believe it is, twice originally in the original part, and once in the second half.
And that's incorrect.
And it's just it's written differently. The two of them on the original are exactly the same in a certain formal style that would have been used, and then the second part it's a completely different style. And so it just it was obviously written at a different time. Normally around the inscriptions there is a border like a frame, and there was no frame around this one. And so they're thinking that the frame was probably removed to make room for the addition. Because you can't have the text going over.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Interesting. Now, I also read a very interesting report that says that while this thing was being shipped somewhere and was damaged somehow.
Yeah.
Now, how?
On
what
shipment to Canada, I believe.
Right.
It was cracked.
And
so.
Why Canada? Why is the first place they send this thing after we discover this? It's never been seen before. Why is Canada the first place it goes?
Blame Canada. Well,
Yeah, but I believe that they had either a museum that was going to get it, or they were going to have some scholars study it, something like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if they have more scholars that come out, with other things.
and it would be interesting to see again if the mainstream news media, trumpets the fact that this thing has now been revealed to be a fraud, as vocally as they trumpeted its discovery.
Well,
yeah, because I remember when...
In a way, that would be nice, but in a way, I doubt it would happen, and not just because of what it is, but just because follow-up news stories usually aren't all that common, regardless of what the story is.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they have
pretty hard.
They have a
find.
special responsibility, I think.
Well,
too.
yeah, I mean, they do in every story, but
Yeah.
do you normally see it? Not as much.
Well, I don't know.
So,
Well, they made a big deal about this when it came out, it
Yeah.
being the
Yeah.
the oldest evidence of the existence of Jesus. And
Yeah, and so they made the implication was that if you were to just read it as everyday layperson, the impression would be given that this thing is like confirmed solid evidence.
Yeah.
And when it had just emerged, and of course in the headlines they'll say things like could be the oldest evidence of Jesus, but people don't remember the could be.
They just see oldest evidence.
And
of Jesus.
they will just go with that. So I think that just human nature being what it is, I think that I think they'd have a responsibility to report, follow the thing through. That's journalism, right? I mean,
but they're keeping a very tight hold on this thing, who they allow to actually examine it.
well, I guess
The woman who wrote this is a linguist, so all she was examining was the language of it. That's how she made her basis of her decision on whether it was authentic or not. Was that the language was wrong, that it was different and poorly executed. That we haven't. Real scientists have not had an opportunity to look at this yet in person and see if for example, if the patina on the additional part is as old as, or
Yeah.
is as old as the patina on the original part, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and they're not letting them. And
Yeah.
there's probably a reason why they're not letting them.
Yeah, well, whoever has concocted this thing wants to make a massive amounts of money off of
That's
it. You know,
Yeah.
clearly.
So yeah, it'd be
So-
interesting to see if they got other reports coming out or something. But here is at least one report that says that no way.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's about. I mean, this is the new Shroud of Turin. It seems. Yeah.
I'm betting it won't be the last one.
No.
true.
And it's
But
not like this came.
interesting timing, though. I mean, we're sort of in this period right now where there's all kinds of religiously motivated turmoil going on around the world, right? There's, we have, of course, the Muslim extremism, from the Middle East, and which has led, which is promoting terrorism, and of course, then we have on the other flip side of that coin, we have fundamentalist Christians extremism sort of on the rise in America. And into the midst of this sort of melting pot of religious fervor that's going on right now, as the new century is starting up, comes this relic.
This pops up
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
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 And so, interesting,
Some
how-
collector's living room
yeah.
comes.
It's like,
Yeah, and it's not like this report right here. The one that calls into question its validity is from some. We often get accused of only using sources favorable to us, but this is what the website is Jews Week.
Yep.
Jews Week.
I know, which was a little bit odd. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't know that, I would think that was a parody, but that apparently that is a Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not pulling this off
Yeah.
of an atheist site. This is, this is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the news that we do
biblical
comes from,
scholarship.
large news organizations.
Yeah.
And we're not yet going.
But
for-
fundamentalist Christians, of course, would say that Jews would want to not have evidence of Jesus either.
Well, that's true.
because, Yeah.
It's, they
True.
could be in on it.
Yeah.
True.
So, because
But
They're almost as bad as us.
but still, regardless of the source, look at the actual arguments being made. Who cares if Willy Wonka made these statements that the lettering is wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at it and it is,
It is. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
All that needs to be
So-
said.
But even if it turned out to be 100% genuine, again, all it would prove is that there was a guy once walking around at one point in time named Jesus. We wouldn't be any closer to any proof of any of the scriptures' supernatural claims.
very true.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So you wonder why these forgers waste their time concocting these relics.
It makes you wonder if they just thought they would slip in under and they would just be able to sell it for.
Yeah.
for
I mean,
profit.
clearly it's a thing that would only really excite the converted, right? I mean, just people who are believers already.
Because
not-
we were pretty skeptical when we heard
Yeah.
about this.
Not too
Yeah.
many people are who are on the fence are going to say, "Wow, they found a box."
that
Yeah.
Must be real.
true.
So I mean, it's interesting how Christian fundamentalists, in particular, they're so quick to repudiate science, and I've heard all sorts of attacks on science. Some of them are just nuts, just from people who don't really understand it, but they have just this seething contempt for science. Until, of course, it comes to trying to support something that promotes what they seem to think is
Yeah.
the validity of their beliefs. So in the case of creationism, or remember when the
Yeah.
Bible code was like this
Yeah.
thing that popped
Yeah.
out, this last scam, and
Yeah.
and I kept hearing all these buzz. This one bozo, a guy named Grant Jeffrey, was a big proponent of these like hidden Bible codes, and he would come on TBN, right? I used to watch TBN all the time and talk about how, and this proves science. He kept just using the phrase "prove scientifically" like it meant something. I was like, this proves scientifically that the Bible's the Word of God. It's like, okay, so you managed to like tweak some weird kind of word combinations out of there, and somehow we've got proof of an invisible, all-powerful magic being. Let's stretch that one a little thinner, maybe. Yeah. So they repudiate science until, of course, they think that they can use it. Because at the same time, while they're repudiating it, they understand that science is the thing that you need to have a little street cred
Yeah.
if you want actual like intellectual people to take you seriously.
Right. Which is why they want intelligent design. They don't want intelligent design, or they don't want creationism taught in religion classes in high schools. They want
No.
creationism taught in science classes.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Science
Yeah.
is the way things work.
Yeah, and I think so in their heart of hearts, they understand that the methods of science work.
Yeah.
And so they want to try to just sort of co-opt it now and say, well, science is just there to sort of prove the Bible true. Well, no. But anyway, okay, so we have a fake ossuary. Surprise, surprise.
Yep, that appears to be so.
Oh well, maybe somebody who has the real ossuary will find it. Just saying. It sort of reminds me of an old episode of Blackadder, where it's a hilarious British comedy series, Rowan Atkinson, and he's roped in. It's set in early medieval days, and he's roped into becoming the Archbishop of Canterbury. And there's this one scene where he and his little lackeys are all getting together and saying, all right, let's get into the relic business. Let's try to make some money at this whole archbishop thing. And so they start going through all the, the leftover knuckle bones of, and things like that. And one of them is utterly shocked and horrified. He said, these are obviously cheap fakes designed to scam, gullible people. It's like, well, so, yeah. He says, well, I have a true relic here. And he gets out this, finger bone of, St. Paul or something, and the guy says, wow, that's amazing. It's like, I know you would be amazed. It's like, yeah, I am amazed. I thought they only came in cases of 12. Wow.
In Europe, every little small town church, chapel, in Europe has like a sliver of a true cross.
Yeah.
They've all these relics spread out. There are three different crown of thorns. The original, the true crown of thorns. There are 3 different ones in Italy alone.
Well, that just proves that the people who, were there at the
Jesus
time...
had 3 heads.
Well, no, it proves that they knew marketing back then. And so the Romans, they put one on for 5 minutes and take it off, put the next one on.
Kind of like they do the flags at the Capitol.
Exactly, yeah. They put a new one up every day. You could sell these things.
So Jesus hanging on the cross, there's some guy on a ladder next to him going, take that one then.
Take him down after 10 minutes, put him up on another cross, take him down again.
Hey, just 50 more, hold still. Oh, boy. Wow. Well, yeah, marketing, right? I mean, it's a business. The Vatican's always been a big, big business, and then, and now Protestant churches after it. Religion is the oldest business in the world. So, how funny.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. You can say whatever cool thought you have on this program.
That's not what I heard was the oldest business in the world.
Wow. Here we are. Jeff Jones is now on. He's going to talk about the Godless Americans March on Washington. This was an event that we'd been announcing it for the last several months. Jeff, why don't you go ahead before we start the slideshow? Just give us your overall what was it? What was it for? What was the purpose of it? Give us your general impressions of it. We'll just kind of start and take it from there.
The Godless Americans March on Washington was an event originally sponsored by the American Atheists, which is one of the larger atheist groups in the country. Its purpose was to bring together a large number of atheist organizations and individuals to go to Washington to march to the steps of the Capitol and let our politicians know that we are out there. There's more of us than you think there are, and to do what every other group that has been maligned and oppressed, for lack of a better word, has in this country's history. The Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, women in the 20s, Million Man March, Million Mom March, so on and so on. They've all come to the mall. They've all marched to either to or from the Capitol of the United States. So that's what we wanted to do, and 2,400 of us showed up to do so. It was a very uplifting experience for those of us who went. There were 8 members of the ACA that went. We met lots of people who had seen or heard our radio shows, who knew about us, who had seen our webpage or whatever. But just the feeling of getting together with that many other like-minded individuals to hear all kinds of people talk on different subjects that are concerned to us, and to stand in front of the Capitol of the United States where our laws are made and where this country, where the foundation of this country exists, was one of the best experiences of my life, certainly the best experiences of my atheism activism.
Yeah. Did you find that there was this feeling of, because this is the first time that nationally atheists have kind of come together from different parts of the country on this scale, and did you get the feeling that there was this sensation of, wow, look at all of us?
Yeah, exactly.
Almost like, that's the thing about atheists. Well, okay, for so many years, right? I mean, most atheists, the overwhelming majority of atheists just in this country, period, are just closeted, kind of scared to talk about it. So it's only been recently, I mean, of course, since Madeline O'Hare and American Atheists, but for the longest time, they were really kind of the only game in town. And then it's only been in the last, I think, maybe I mean, for example, ACA is only, what, 5 or 6 years old?
5, 6, yeah, I think it's 6 years old.
6 years old.
Yeah.
Our group's only about 6 years old. For atheists to just kind of get together and form these little organizations and just in order to create this sense of community, you know, for unbelievers within the larger community. And so I can imagine there was this feeling of, you know, when you got these little pockets of atheists from around the country suddenly coalesced, this feeling of, holy cow, look at all, you know, look how...
Well, we showed up at the actual...
That must have been a real morale builder.
It was a great morale builder. I mean, we showed up at the actual launching stage, you know, or where we actually were going to gather for the march, and there were about 150 to 175 people there, and it's about an hour before the march, and we kind of looked at each other and went, well, let's hope it's more than this, but they just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and it was a great feeling to look down the mall toward the Capitol and see hundreds of people walking your way to this area to stand there and to start this march. And by the time it was all over, it was just a huge crowd. And when we started marching down, I went to the front of the very front of the line, and looking back, all you could see, as far as you could see, were people marching with signs, you know, on our side. So it was an unbelievable feeling. I mean, really a remarkable feeling that there's a lot more of us than they think there are. We knew that.
Yeah.
You know, we knew that.
Yeah.
It's just this is the first time that we've gathered together in those amounts, those numbers.
So everyone started at one end of the mall, walked down to the other end with the Capitol building on it, and then at that point, I guess, there were speakers and there was a stage set up?
We started just in front of the Washington Monument and walked toward the Capitol, and in front of the Capitol, a couple hundred yards in front of the Capitol, but at the end of the mall, there was a stage set up, great sound system, big video screen and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
well, what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and get the slideshow rolling, and you can just give us some play-by-play because there was, in addition to all of this, you know, yay, big group hug, you know, we're all atheists kind of thing. There were some amusement, amusing diversions, you know, present.
To clarify, the purpose of this was not for us all to get together and and
be obnoxious,
and feel sorry for ourselves.
Confrontational.
Right.
This was
the purpose was to go and to, as Ellen Johnson said in her opening remarks, the purpose of this was a class in Activism 101. It was a class in showing. It was they wanted to bring us together so we could look around, see how many of us there were, and get excited about going out to our communities and doing something about it. I mean, and standing up for what we believe are our rights, what we know are our rights, and getting out there and being active.
Yeah.
And I think I can't imagine anyone coming back from that and not having that feeling. I know we all did.
Yeah.
The 8 of us that went.
And I understand now that they are tentatively planning another one 2 years hence.
2 years hence, right.
2 years hence.
Oh.
I'm going to that one.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be great if now, you know, just if we had estimated, what, about 2,400? 2,500. In 2000.
10 times at that.
Or even twice as many, if it were 5,000 or 6,000 next time.
Yeah.
And then 2 years after that, it were 10,000 or what have you. I mean, this is how these things build very slowly. And it's really very exciting. And so here we go now. We're starting with the photos. Okay, we said there's this band here. What's this all about?
This was the band that saw us onto the plane at the airport, at the Austin airport. Actually, they weren't there for us.
Yeah, I was about to say.
They were there because myself, Jeff D, and Vic
Stay on the
Farrow,
pictures, control room.
we all flew on the very first flight out of Austin on Midwest Express airline.
Oh my!
Which is a good airline, by the way. It was all first-class seats, and
I had to make a good
they
first
served
impression
chocolate
there.
chip cookies on all flights. So great airline.
And planes and flying nowhere in particular. Just
the CEO of the company was there, and he flew with us back to Kansas
on base
City.
There.
But we thought it was the mayor was there and everything.
This
saw us off to the Godless American March on Washington.
Oh, sweet. All right.
we just preferred to think that they were seeing
Okay.
us.
Now there's some meeting going on here, right?
Actually, this was us eating with a bunch of New Jersey humanists.
Okay, so we get the hotel room. I see Jeff D peeking his face out there, and there's you.
There's me.
Okay.
Vic was taking the picture.
Taking the picture. So he
This
would
is
be
a
out
great
of frame.
all-you-can-eat seafood.
Now, where'd you
buffet.
guys stay? A whole bunch of hotels were shut down. Okay.
And there was
some
a really
people.
funny Romanian there.
Okay.
I think Vic's looking up his name.
Okay.
These are some folks that stayed at the hotel we were staying at. We were staying at the Best Western Capitol Skyline.
Okay.
5 blocks from the Capitol. We had a great view of the Capitol right outside our window.
Lynn Wright and Renee Gosson.
Lynn Wright and Renee Gosson.
Corpus Christi in North Carolina.
Lynn is from Corpus Christi. The other one's from North Carolina. We were running into atheists everywhere.
Everywhere. Wow.
On this trip. It was all I could think was, man, I wish it was like this all the time.
Yeah,
This is us leaving the hotel to actually go to the march. The next photo will be us getting on the bus. This is the bus that was.
Oh, it's holiday snaps time. Yeah. It's
This was a bus that was.
and here's little Bobby on the lake. I'll keep going. Ah!
It's the Western Monument.
There we
the
go.
bus that we got on, by the way, was arranged for by Joe Zemecki, a former member and host of this show.
Yeah,
As a
Joe.
matter of fact,
Yeah.
who now works for American Atheists. in
Great
New Jersey.
guy. I've talked to him on the phone several times. Okay, so they were a beautiful day. You guys had a terrific day of weather.
Beautiful. It's wonderful. It's a little windy.
Yeah, well, I
but
knew it was going to be cold in D.C.
Well, it's in
that
the
time.
50s, in
Yeah.
the 50s, and it was
now
very
that-
pleasant until about
Yeah.
the last half hour of the march.
Yeah, now
Then it
that
started getting a
day,
little
that
chilly.
day back here, it was like gray and muggy and disgusting.
Yeah,
and
I heard
was
it was
nothing.
raining like
Yeah,
crazy.
horrible. So I'm glad we got it. You guys did. Okay, there's a,
This is early on when we're gathering, and there's just like a couple hundred people there.
everybody's sort of.
But even being around a couple hundred people, we were just pumped. We were excited.
Okay.
This is a guy from Democrats for Religious Freedom. He gave us buttons, and there are all kinds of people out like this, just with signs and.
So they're just milling about and meeting and
That's
mingling.
that's
and
exactly
there's
right. We met a
different
lot of people.
signs. You don't need God to be good. There you
Yeah.
go. There's more. Come along. And
This is Camp Quest 2002. This is their banner, and some of the kids from Camp Quest.
yeah, no, isn't it Freedom from Religion Foundation puts that
I
on?
believe so.
Yeah, it's
I believe they're one of the driving forces. The guy who actually runs it spoke at the actual rally.
Now that's like
and
a secular summer camp for kids,
it's
right?
right. And man, I tell you,
What's
the
on
guy
Morse
that
code? Morse code on the sign?
Yeah,
it
it appears
is.
to be. Well,
And
some
what
of
would that say?
well,
I have no idea what it says.
someone
Yeah,
will have to
Morse
tell
code,
us. Yeah. So.
But let me tell you, the guy who runs this impressed the heck out of me. It sounds like if I ever have kids, they're going to this camp.
all right, and they're staying.
Yeah, they have two. They have 2 invisible unicorns there. They have livestock. They have 2 invisible unicorns, and there is a standing prize of an old Godless $100 bill without the "In God We Trust" on it.
Wow.
To
If you
anyone
have
who can prove that the 2 invisible unicorns don't exist.
Okay.
Wow.
But now these
Cool.
folks are great, right?
These folks.
I just
yeah,
love their shirts. Their shirts are priceless.
Got Jesus? Nope.
Must.
They're from James.
That's
We like
great.
these guys too.
That's great.
They're students from James Madison University, and they're from the James Madison University Atheists.
Cool. All
Nice
right.
folks.
Yeah. All right. Onward through the fog. Hey, more.
This is a couple. This is a couple who drove from Michigan, from the Detroit area, who came up to us when they saw. When I was standing, I introduced myself to some of the folks at the Atheist Network banner, and they happened to be standing there, and they saw I was from Austin. And they say, "Are any of the nonprofits here?" And I said, "Well, you know, most of them are." And, so I took
Show's
them over
getting
to
out
show
there.
them, to introduce them to Jeff, and they had come. They had driven up there specifically because of something we had said the week before on the nonprofits.
Wow.
It had convinced them that they needed to come.
Yay.
So they showed up
Good
because
work,
of the
nonprofits.
nonprofits. Right.
The influence of the Atheist Community of Austin stretches the globe. All right.
That's excellent.
Lots and lots of great signs.
Yeah.
Government should support science, not religion.
Yeah,
Atheism
that
cures
one's to the
religious
point.
ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots and lots of good signs, and we got pictures of all of them. This is someone actually making a sign. A lot of people just showed up with a bunch of stuff and made them.
Some last minute.
There's family
This
there.
is former members of the ACA who now live in Florida,
Okay.
who came and found us. And
Don't recognize them.
I think they were here last year sometime.
Really?
Okay. Well, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Falwell equals Taliban.
Yeah, this sign got
That's
on.
kind of like flattering, actually. I don't know.
This sign got on C-SPAN quite a bit. They focused on it a lot during the rally itself.
Who doesn't enjoy beating up that guy?
That's right.
Now there's Jeff D. with
This is
Reggie, the infidel guy.
the infidel guy from atheistnetwork.com.
Yeah.
And our own Jeff D., host of the nonprofits and former host of this show.
Most, and the infidel guy is an incredibly popular
Yes.
internet atheist radio show.
And by the way, nonprofits is second only to the infidel guys on popularity on that network.
So take that. Anyway, okay, and just
We don't
well,
plug
guys,
anything on our show.
This is this fellow was recording everything. Did he interview you, Vic?
No, that was back a couple
Okay.
This is
right.
He's a guy who is with
American
American Atheists in Fort Worth, I believe, isn't it?
Okay, so nearby. So is he with Metroplex Atheists?
He may have been with Metroplex. I don't think he's like a kind of a solo guy.
Oh, okay.
But I know he's a representative
He's the guy
somehow.
with the Toyota that has atheist written in the back of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay, onward.
Oh, that guy.
Onward through the
License
fog.
plate?
Yeah.
No, the whole back.
No.
Hold back of his.
Now here's
okay.
our crew.
Here's
everybody,
us. Some
yeah.
nice person, some nice atheist took this picture for us. This
Yeah.
is pretty much all of us, except Kyle. Kyle was out filming video at the time.
Yeah, we do. We'll
which
try to get
hopefully
some of that video on like
we'll
a
have some of
future
that video in
episode.
the future,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is pretty much all of us.
Banner
Laura
looks a lot
Sargent,
nicer
very
than
in
it
there.
did on
Myself,
the TV show, I tell you. But there's Jeff D and Vic Farrow.
Jeff D.
and-
Vic
and
Farrow,
somebody.
Mary Sue Osborne, her daughter,
Yeah.
Serena, Charlotte Lawson.
A bunch of very, very cold Texans standing there in the
Yes.
Washington, D.C. weather going, take the picture!
Actually, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It got a little windy toward the end, but it was very
Okay.
pleasant. At this
Now
time.
there's
this
the march.
Is
that
thousands of-
that is just something else.
It's
you
a
know?
beautiful scene. Let me
That
tell
is
you.
that's why we opened the
was,
show with it. That is just something else. I mean, you're just the
Atheist
stream of
as
folks
far as the eye could see. It
and
was,
walk into the Capitol, our fine government, governmental, offices, and the seat of power right there. That's really
there was.
amazing.
I think Vic will agree with this. I think there was nothing quite like the feeling of this
Yeah.
march right
Yeah.
here. I've never experienced anything quite like it.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yep.
Thanks.
It was,
Okay.
it was really, really great.
That's all right. Onward. Okay. And
That's the
again, and we'll just keep going.
A photo very similar
And
to that
more.
is actually on the American Atheist website.
Cool. Okay. And it's just now. This is just everybody now. Where the march is now underway.
Yep, we've
And we're heading on.
and we're
Galaxy like
we're
Steve
soon to get
Martin.
to the to the fundamentalist protesters.
Okay.
There they are.
Here
yeah.
we go. Now this is the fun part.
Yeah, this is the fun part.
Okay, now.
We walked by these guys,
Okay.
and it felt pretty good outnumbering them for a change.
Mm-hmm.
And they were. I mean, we. I can't say that all of our members, all of the people on this march, will just walk by them and ignore them, which is what American Atheists wanted us to do.
It's so.
But you just can't sometimes. I mean,
It's
some of those
asking
signs
for
were
it.
so outrageous and so,
Jesus. See, there's a lovely Jesus
yeah,
being
Jesus
whipped.
being whipped. Yeah,
Our Lord, liar, or lunatic.
the S&M
There's that whole-
Jesus. That,
Yeah.
we just-
Again. Why they think those are appealing images is.
and why they think that's going to convince us, I don't know. I walked up to one of them and I asked him, I said, do you really think that we are non-believers because we've never thought about these things? Do you really think that we're non-believers because we haven't heard these things? And he told me, well, we're here for the spectators. And I looked around, and there's us and them. That's it. There aren't any spectators.
2,500 of you guys, and what? Maybe like.
And like maybe 24 of these guys. And
Okay, so
no,
That's
I
all
don't
the
know
mall
who they were
pigeon.
there for, but it certainly wasn't. for
now there's
spectators.
Jeff D laughing derisively at.
At one of these funny protests. that's
Okay,
right.
and there's more.
More of them, yeah.
Okay.
I walked by a fellow about halfway down there. He was
Okay.
on the right side.
Now
Almost all
look at
these
that.
guys,
Look
yeah.
at now.
I know.
Isn't that a nice, uplifting, positive message for
Yeah.
humanity?
Well, they
Prepare
tell
to
me-
meet thy God in
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah.
All you atheists, this is
Apparently.
where you're going. That's what they were saying to us,
Don't they
basically.
just have such a wonderful,
you're going to hell
uplifting
and
message
proud
for
of it.
people?
We weren't getting the God loves you messages.
No.
We weren't. We were getting the you're going to burn in hell messages.
Yeah.
This is what people they
Wow.
were saying to us. That's what they were yelling to us.
Don't they
Repent,
have?
Well, they realize that none of the other arguments have ever
They're gonna
worked,
work, yeah,
so
they're
try
hoping-
this one again.
They're hoping that we'll suddenly start believing in hell.
He
even
that
though we don't believe in
believeth
it.
not is condemned already. See, now that's the okay. Now there's somebody is pulling out, the John 3:18.
Yeah.
Okay, but don't they have just such a loving, uplifting, positive,
Message for us. Yeah. That's what
humanitarian message? I mean, how can anyone not share these beliefs with such uplifting positivity? I tell you, it's
And we
beyond
talked
me.
to a lot of these folks,
There we go. Some more. Okay.
and it ranged. It really did range from
Yeah.
these. Some of these people are good people, just led so
yeah. They're just
terribly astray,
Yeah.
and think that they're actually out there doing something for us. And some of them are out there because this makes them feel good. It makes them feel. I mean, they get to get out there and look at all the people who are going to hell when they're not, and it makes them feel good. One of the guys I really got into it with later, who was haranguing an old couple, which is why I got involved in it.
Yeah, now
was
tell
exactly
us,
that type.
Now tell us about that, because that's just like
Yeah.
a really...
Oh, I'm sure we probably have a picture of him down the line
Yeah,
here.
but I mean, because
But-
that's just an example of, you told us that story earlier, and I'd really like for you to tell us that.
I went
Because-
to, this is Kyle.
There's Kyle, that's one of our guys, our
doing
video
some
dude, yeah.
filming video, yeah.
Okay.
These, before we get to that story, I think we're about to get to this guy, so.
Okay.
These fellows are Christian Zionists who are there
Zionists?
to support Israel because they say that we should support Israel because
I will honor those who honor me.
as long as
Well,
Israel has to be there for the Armageddon to happen.
AmericaBlessGod.com?
Yeah.
What?
These folks, they're there because they say we have to support Israel so that
Jesus can return.
Armageddon will happen and Jesus can return.
So these are people who want the end of the
want
world.
the end of the world to happen.
Okay.
And they'd be happy. They'd be really
Wow.
happy if they could figure out a way to make it happen tomorrow.
Boy,
Wow.
that's just like, you know,
Yeah, and then
people,
once again, us.
people. Okay, there's ACA, and let's see what's next. And okay, and everybody's
is us,
now.
yeah.
Have we reached the end?
They're
like
reaching the
staging
area. This
Yeah.
is the staging area. This is like some of the auxiliary tents,
Okay.
information tents, and merchandise tents and things like that. This is the big video screen that they had down on the actually down on the ground at this point. It was raised up later.
Right on.
Where they showed video and a slide presentation later.
Okey-doke.
Before we get any further, Martin had asked me about this one fellow.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a guy that was holding one of the big signs, and he had this. He was holding a big 10-foot pole with a sign, a cloth sign on it. He was wearing one of those things like that people walk around advertising cafes and stuff
Oh, like
downtown.
a sandwich board?
Yeah, sandwich board. That's what
okay.
it's called. He was wearing a sandwich board, and he had "Trust Jesus" written in big yellow letters on a black shirt. So he had all his bases covered here, but he had his bases covered, but he wasn't playing on the same field we were playing in. I sat down and went to call my girlfriend, and I sat down on a park bench, and these guys were all off to the side. I heard him over to my right, talking to a little old couple. I don't know where they were from, but they were sitting on the bench because they were tired. And they were there for the march, and they wanted to hear the speakers. And he's over there looming over them. He's a very big guy, looming over them and telling them. And this is what I heard that made me get up and go and get myself involved in this conversation. He told them that they were very old and they would be dying soon, and therefore their memory was probably shot too. So they really didn't remember why they were Christians before, and that's why they were atheists now.
Oh man!
Yeah, this guy was.
How much more disrespectful can you possibly
You
be?
can't be. You can't be any more disrespectful.
I mean,
You can't
that
be
just
any
got
more
to show. I mean,
vulgar.
is there no depth to which they will not stoop?
There is no
Okay,
depth to which they
in
will
order
not stoop.
to like harangue unbelievers and say, no, this is why you need to belong to the Jesus fan club.
Islamists will blow up buildings.
Yes.
This is just wow. I mean,
Yeah, it was amazing.
you just
So-
walk up right up to him and just say, "Sir, you're a dick."
That's what I wanted to
that's
do,
what-
but
that's what I
there was a
would've
little old
said.
couple there, and they probably would have been offended with that language. So I didn't do
They
that.
might have laughed their heads off. Who knows?
They
yeah.
might have, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
did
he
go
would have
up-
had it coming if you. Yeah.
He would have, definitely.
Yeah.
I did go up, and
So what'd you say to him?
I just asked him why he was bothering these poor little old people, and he said he was the basic answer. I'm here to help them.
You're gonna die soon. Thanks.
God,
So
you're gonna die.
basically-
Your memory sucks.
yeah.
Jeez.
Our discussion turned into me asking him why he believed in God, and him not being willing to tell me, except for the
being
fact
willing
that
to tell
his
you?
only answers, the only thing he would answer me after he asked me what my religious background was,
Yeah.
and when told that I grew up Catholic, he then said, "Oh well, I know where you're an atheist." And,
Yeah.
because
Because
you were raised by hypocrites and
Yeah.
stuff. Oh, okay, well, I don't think Catholics are any more silly than you are, so. But I think they're just as silly. So.
yeah.
But it basically boiled down to, and what I try to do when I talk to these people is I always ask them why they believe in God, because a lot of these people have never even really thought about why they believe in God. And when you ask them that question, they have to think about it, maybe for the first time in their lives. This guy, his answer was, because the Bible tells me God exists. I asked him then, why do you believe the Bible is valid? Because the Bible is the revealed Word of God, the inspired Word of God. I next asked him, why do you think that? What evidence? I mean,
Well, he's
why do you
already
think-
he's already into tautology.
Oh yeah, but the next question I asked is the one he wouldn't answer.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that he couldn't, or he felt he couldn't. Well, of course he
He just
couldn't, but
didn't want to?
he just wouldn't.
Okay.
You know, he said, "I'm not going to play your game." He would if I went back and asked the other two again, he would answer those exactly the way he did before, but he wouldn't answer, "Why do you believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God? Why? I mean, what makes you believe that?"
Yes, some
I'm not
There
going
are-
to play your game. When
There
I
are
asked
lots
that
of
question,
books
he
out
would
there
not
that
go
say
beyond
lots of
that.
Okay.
things. You have
Yeah.
to have a reason for believing this one
Yeah.
and not others.
Why
Well-
is yours more valid than
Well,
Yeah.
clearly
than
he
Hindu?
didn't, which is why he's like,
Yeah.
He,
yeah.
he
Game,
couldn't
right?
answer it, so he wouldn't answer it.
ask him
Yeah.
a question.
But this went on for in various ways of trying to actually get him to answer that question for about 15 minutes, and this was filmed the whole time by
Yeah.
whoever was doing the documentary. Someone was doing a documentary.
Oh,
about it,
okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and the guy at the end, when I finally told the guy, well, I don't think we have anything to talk about here.
Yeah.
Handed me a card and said, "You'll be in the documentary." So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't know what that means.
Excellent.
but,
Well, okay.
Yeah, it was very interesting. The conversation with him was very interesting.
Okay, we're going to go through the
There
rest
he
of
is,
these.
as a matter of fact,
Oh,
right
which-
there.
which guy in the
fellow
red?
in the black shirt.
Oh, black shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, he was shooting a documentary. Okay.
No, that's the guy I was arguing with.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
guy who was haranguing the old
That's
people.
the fellow right there.
All right. Well, yeah.
Security next.
He looks like
Yeah.
such a nice fellow. Yeah.
Yeah, he was involved. I think he was leading these guys. All those guys. There's a whole bunch of people with black shirts and with big red or big yellow letters on them. And they'd spent some cash on this too. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
those signs were cloth and professionally printed, and they have these big wide leather belts with these steel cups in them to hold them up because they couldn't possibly hold them up.
There's a Freudian joke in
Yeah.
there. But I'm gonna-
And as a matter of fact, Reggie from Atheist Network, the infidel guy, saw one of the signs that was actually wrong. It
Yeah.
had an error in the verse, right? You know, they were showing exactly what they had right there.
okay, that's their little.
Their little holders
Holster.
that allowed
Okay,
them to
their
hold
little-
these things up.
Okay.
Reggie found one that was wrong, and went and told the guy it was wrong. He goes, "No, this is in the Bible exactly like this." And Reggie said, "You better look it up." And the guy looked it up, and it was wrong.
You mean it was an incorrect scripture?
It was incorrect. Yeah, I mean, well, it wasn't incorrect scripture. It was. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had a
One of
word
the words
wrong.
was wrong.
But the word that it was wrong was pretty important.
Ah.
It changed the meaning of the scripture.
Oops.
And that one got put down on the ground, face down, and we never saw it again. So,
Okay, well, I guess that's probably going to cover it for the slideshow. But overall, let's because we want to go ahead and put the phone number up now and start getting our calls in. But while we're doing that, so overall, there were several speakers.
Michael Newdow being one of them,
Yeah.
the pledge fellow.
Yeah.
One of the ones that really impressed me was a fellow running for governor of Michigan, wasn't it? And on the Green Party. It was an out atheist and
Yeah.
extremely articulate, very, very good. Kathleen Johnson from one of the best things that happened in the entire march. We can't go by without talking about this. One of the best things that happened was Kathleen Johnson is the founder of Military Atheists and Free Thinkers.
Okay.
While she was speaking, when she first started speaking, she asked them. She asked the audience, anyone who's been in the military, anyone who's served in the military, who's been in a foxhole, please come up to the stage.
Yeah.
And as she was speaking, within minutes, people started filing in behind her on the stage. Lots and lots and lots and lots of people.
So-
Dozens and dozens, and then well over 100, I would say between 100 and 200 people, ended up on stage and in front of the stage. They could not fit them all on stage, so they had to put them down in front.
So these
And
were
here's a picture of it right here.
Those are the atheists and foxholes.
This is Atheists and Foxholes, and this is before, there are even more of them in that little tent on the right side there, filing in there.
Wow.
It was an amazing display, and if anyone ever tells you there are no atheists in foxholes,
Yeah. Look at this, people. Yeah.
we've got a picture, and,
we got the film to prove it.
and
yeah.
we've seen them. We've seen hundreds of them.
Yeah, I know. It's atheists are just as loyal in serving their country as any other
exactly
group,
right. That's
and
Atheists have fought and died for this country since its inception.
well, that's
the day
cool.
one.
That's great. That was just must have been a really poignant moment.
It was a great moment.
Awesome.
It brought your
Yeah.
really brought your heart up in your throat.
Great. Wow. Well, so now the whole thing was not. I'm sure no one had the idea that this is going to change how Washington does business.
No.
But overall, really, I think the purpose of the march was to bring, very disparate atheist and freethinker groups from around the
Exactly.
country together to just make everyone aware of each other, to let us know that you're not alone, and we can get together like we're doing now.
We can work together, right?
We can work together.
There are already PACs there are at least 2 PACs forming as a base.
Well, political action committees are starting
political
to form.
action committees where we're going to put our money where our mouths are.
Excellent.
And we're going to support candidates who agree with our way of thinking. And and they don't even have to agree with everything. They certainly don't have to agree with everything. We're not going to find candidates like that for the most part. What we're going to find are people who support separation of church and state. We're going to support them.
Yeah. Yeah, and people who respect the religious diversity that this country is based on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not just this whole promotion of Judeo-Christianity over all else, because it happens to be the majority religion. And not pandering to the majority like the 2 major parties do.
Right.
Well, that is really terrific. And so I'm definitely going in 2004. And I think it would be terrific if, like you said, anywhere from twice, but I'd love to see 10 times as many.
10 times as many,
And people just turn up for that. See, I was hoping, I was supposed to be working on a film during that period, so that's why I didn't go. But, otherwise, what I would have really wanted to do was go make a couple of days of it, spend a day, see all the museums, and then wrap it up with that event. That would just been the ultimate trip out to DC.
Make a vacation of it.
Yeah. Because Washington is just an astounding town. I mean, it really is amazing.
Really?
You really do get this. Just walking through DC, you get a feeling of awe.
Yeah,
this is where our country is run.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it all happens.
And you'll walk by a building and you look up and it's the United States Treasury Building, or the Department of Commerce, or
and they're really these impressive, imposing edifices.
Yeah.
I mean, you walk down there there's a great feeling of solidity, and you really just you just feel a lot of pride.
Wow.
To be part of it, or just walking down DC.
I'm the biggest Church of Scientology I've ever seen.
Well, you can't not have that.
Gotta make sure you hit that one.
It said founding church, or founding church of Scientology.
Well, Hubbard was out
But
in
then
LA.
again,
He was out in L.A. I don't know.
But then again, how many times have you seen, First Church of Christ?
Yeah.
First Church
but
and
founding-
Baptist Southern.
founding implies
You never
something
see
else,
the
you know.
seconds or the thirds
Yeah.
or anything. They're all the firsts.
Founding implies
we're the
something else.
first.
I don't believe it was the actual founding church of Scientology, but it was a big one.
It was the founding on that
Oh,
block.
cool. Well, that's terrific. And once again, so we, in ACA, we're really proud of you little gang of 8 people who went out there and represented us and did a fine job representing us, and for the whole Godless Americans March for doing just a terrific job representing positive atheism. I mean, that's what it was for.
That's exactly what it's for, and that's what it did.
Yeah.
We left there feeling, and we weren't there to make fun of Christians. We weren't there. A little bit of that went on, but anytime you get a bunch of atheists together, that's going to go on.
When someone provokes you, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
what can you do?
we were being
right?
provoked.
Yeah.
What,
Sometimes you can rise above it, but other times it's just sort of being offended. But we're going to go ahead. Let's. We're going to go ahead and start taking calls. We're also being told, though, first to mention that reruns of this program show on Tuesdays on this channel at 4:30, Atheist Experience replay. So we're just going to go straight to line 1 and talk to Russell.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Russell.
Great. First of all, good to hear all about the March on Washington. I wanted to mention that I think, Jeff, you're going to be on the show, on the radio show next week,
Yes.
right? To
Yes,
also
that's right.
talk about this in more detail.
Yeah, Jeff D, and Vic will all be on there.
Yeah.
And second of all, you guys all missed another event that took place this weekend, a little less publicized than the Godless March on Washington. A bunch of us atheists went out and went all the way to the Renaissance Festival.
Okay. That finally happened.
Yep.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so they just pushed it back because of weather, so it actually
A
went out.
terrific time was had by all. We
Okay.
had a fairly small turnout. It was basically me and my crew, and Jeff and Manda and my sister Karen and a guy named Michael from the list who I just met for the first time.
Yeah,
We met at
okay.
another time.
Yeah,
And
he's
most
a
of
guy
us
who
were
went
in
to...
costume.
Okay.
And
Yeah, did you wear your bishop's outfit?
yes, I was dressed as the Spanish Inquisition.
Okay,
He
okay.
infected me.
Okay, photos of that must emerge at some point, yeah.
And we had various other, barmaid, wench, princess outfits.
What?
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Exactly.
Okay, it's like the hell? I had the correct reaction to that.
I did that several times. In fact, Karen would come by and jump out at me from out of nowhere and say, "Oh my goodness, I didn't expect the Spanish Inquisition."
Okay, so what do you guys just eat a lot of stuff and have fun and
Well, I mean, I should tell you, the place is huge. I mean, I had no idea that the Renaissance Festival is such a big deal in Texas. But, I mean, my estimate was that the area was about as big as Six Flags, and it was more crowded.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that the first time you've been, Russell?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Yeah, I've never been.
To this
Oh, it's great.
particular
It's a lot of
Renaissance
fun.
fair, anyway.
It's a lot of fun.
But
It's one of the largest ones in the country.
It is, yeah, it must be. They're enormous. They have huge numbers of shops and people in silly costumes and and things you can waste your money on. And I hope that we can get a bigger crowd together for next time because it was a real blast.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, just, I see no reason why not. I mean, our group is getting to just where we're just doing more outings and stuff. I mean, and so that seems like it would just be right up everyone's alley.
Yeah, and that's important because sometimes when you tell people you're in an atheist group, their first reaction is, "What do? Sit around and talk about how there's no God?"
Not really, no.
Well, we're doing that
In
now.
fact, we
But,
rarely
but
do
otherwise,
Except on this show, we rarely do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
speaking of, we seem to recall that you were our producer once upon a time.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah. We'd love to have you back at some point.
yeah, I've been a little busy, you know, running the radio show also.
Well, Ben can screen phone calls, so just bring him down here. He's he'll do just fine.
Anyone can work a camera.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And now our camera crew is threatening to beat me up.
Yeah. Yes. No.
Okay. Well, I better go before they turn their wrath on me.
Okay. Well, great to hear from you, and we'll see you tomorrow night at Gamers. All right.
All right. Bye.
Take care. That is our illustrious producer, Russell Glasser. So yeah, tune in next Saturday to atheistnetwork.com for the nonprofits too, and hear more fun stuff about God's Americans March. You'll get to hear Vic's story firsthand, and Jeff D will talk firsthand about his little encounters with proselytizers. Don't forget who's feeding me. What is this?
Completely unrelated.
You guys, the two Ashleys are sending each other mash notes while we're on the air, and.
But it came from our cameraman.
Yeah. All right, okay. I'm sorry, our camera crew is like, there's hijinks going on, and it's all kinds of goofy fun. All right, so into this festival of immaturity, we will talk to, we will bring Anne on line 2 and see what she has to say about it all. Hello, Anne.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for waiting.
Oh, you're welcome, no problem.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're all right.
Good. During the time when you were talking about this slideshow with the march, and you mentioned one of the Christian picket holders who held a sign that said "Liar, Lunatic, or Lord." I was just wondering if you could expand about because you sounded like you had heard that before, and so I was just wondering if you could expand on your opinions about that.
That's one of C.S. Lewis's things, and Josh McDowell's brought it up too. The overall idea is. At least as Josh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably should have explained that. I've heard it before, so I know what it means. I was wondering if you could. What I'm wondering is your opinion about that theory.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll give a summary of it for our viewers at home. The idea is that, at least according to Josh McDowell's version, that he calls it the trilemma, which is not a real term, but anyway, the idea is that Jesus, either he was a lunatic, in other words, who but a lunatic would go around saying all of these, calling himself the Son of God, if it weren't true, or he would have been if he wasn't a lunatic, if he wasn't somebody just going around utterly mad, engaging in all these fantasies and pretending to be divine, he was either, if he weren't a lunatic, then either he would have had to have been a liar, somebody who had this malicious agenda in order to deceive people for his own self-aggrandizement, going around masquerading as the Lord, and in other words, deliberately lying, or he really was the Lord. And Josh McDowell argues, well, there's no evidence that Jesus was crazy, and there's certainly no reason to think that Jesus would have lied. Why would he have lied? So the fallback position then is that Jesus would have had to have been Lord. And he argues that that's really the only conclusion that you can conceivably reach. And there's, among the problems with this, of course, is that, first off, we have no reason, it's entirely possible, that many of the stories that we know from the Gospels were stories that were essentially, I don't want to say concocted, but they were assembled and put together from oral traditions that were passed down, like in subsequent years following Jesus' life, and became embellished and took on a life of their own. And Jesus became a mythologized figure. And so what ended up in the Gospels, even if you want to accept as a point of argument, okay, that there might have been a man named Jesus or Yeshua or whatever his original name might have been, going around spreading very positive teachings to people, bringing the Jews together. In that regard, there's no reason to think that the stories that have emerged and that we know from the Gospels, such as his resurrection, the miracles that he performed, weren't entirely fictionalized many years after Jesus died. And we know that in those cultures, it's very common in cultures like that for very famous heroic figures to become mythologized. Now, Jesus in the Gospels is portrayed as being very popular. Everyone is supposed to have known who he was. So if there was this messianic figure, or a figure who was just a great spiritual teacher, going around spreading positive teachings and having a great impact upon the community, and his reputation grew as a result, I have a copy of a book called The 12 Caesars by Suetonius. It's this great biography of the 12 Roman emperors from Augustus, starting from Augustus. And in there, he tells stories about the emperors that ended up being spread throughout the populace as a result of their military campaigns. And you hear about how Romans were telling each other of all these amazing, miraculous deeds that the Roman emperors were doing while they were off conquering the Gauls and what have you. Talking about how and a golden eagle flew down from the heavens and landed 3 times around him and laid an egg, and then from the egg came this mighty sword. And these were stories that were spread about these leaders and swallowed with complete credulity by people who heard them. And then they got spread more and more. So it's well known that in these early primitive cultures, if you have a popular figure that the population is rallying around, all kinds of miraculous things are going to be attributed to them. So if it was happening about the Caesars, there's no reason why it wasn't happening about God. So we don't really have any evidence, we don't have any reason to just take the Gospels at face value as historical documents. So, and the whole Lord, Liar, or Lunatic argument does tend to take that as its premise, that, okay, first, accepting the Gospels as being some sort of historical document, what then are the solutions? Either you have, Jesus was crazy, Jesus was a really bad guy going around lying, or he must have been Lord. Yeah. And so I think that just the whole argument is kind of flawed in its premise.
Okay.
So I hope I didn't ramble on too much.
No, I appreciate you answering.
Sure.
Because I'd only ever heard it from a Christian perspective, and someone.
Sure.
So when you mentioned it, because I don't know, I guess I assumed that y'all had never heard that. So,
no, we've been doing this for quite a while. We like to be the kinds of people who, if we're going to critique something, we want to know what we're talking about.
Right.
It's helpful.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your question. Thanks for watching.
You're welcome. And can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I just want you to know that. Oh no.
No, go ahead.
Well, because I am a Christian, and I just want you to know that there are Christians that watch the show that aren't. I mean, I would never call and just.
Yeah, and we know that, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Jeff tells stories about these very aggressive, very negative fundamentalists who harangue us, and we know that most, like the Jerry Falwells of the world, don't represent all Christians.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they don't represent nearly most of the Christians.
Yeah, I mean the intolerant fundamentalist, loudmouths don't represent what most Christians are who they are.
Well, and I firmly believe that in order for me to want to share anything about what I believe, I have to be able to listen to what others believe. Well, so I have no problem listening to your beliefs and seeing the value that you see in them and listening to your side. And so.
Well, we appreciate you watching the show, and if you ever have any questions that you want to lob at us, just feel free, all right?
Thanks very much.
Okay, you take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
There's a fourth possibility that McDowell doesn't go into, and that's the possibility that Christ as a person actually never did exist.
Well, sure.
Which, I mean, we can't just assume that he did, because there are no reliable sources or evidence for the existence of Jesus outside of religious sources. I mean, that's we have. Seems to me we have a bunch of fraudulent relics. Yeah. We have a forged passage or two in Josephus, but still, again, I am not. I am not. I don't think it is implausible
excuse me, belch. That's always healthy. Got to get it out, right? That the world, that what became the largest religion in the world, might have been rooted in like an actual guy. A lot of atheists, make an issue out of, well, I don't think Jesus could possibly because. I'm even willing to take, as a point of argument, maybe he did. We still have the
kind of beside the point.
Yeah. How can you possibly prove these supernatural claims?
Well, it's beside the point to a certain point.
Yeah.
But if it's ever shown that he did not exist, I mean
that's pretty important.
That's pretty
fact,
much
yeah.
But
Judea was crawling with messiahs.
Yeah.
Around the
first century, the Gnostic cults, the mystery cults were popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
I believe that Jesus was probably. This is my personal opinion from what I've read, that Jesus was probably a conglomeration of those leaders of those mystery cults from that Gnostic era of the first century. Yeah. That's just my personal belief.
Yeah, and I've also heard some good arguments that he may have belonged to the Essenes, which were this is a group of like ascetic monks, and who took many different religious influences, but they lived this really isolated monastic life. And Tom is on line 3. Let's see what he has to say. Hey, Tom, you're on the air.
Hey, Martin, how are you?
We are well.
Well,
Thanks, thanks for watching. What's up?
I was calling actually along the same lines, Dan. I'm also a Christian. I'm calling with more of a political question, just along the lines of public education and evolution being taught in schools. I totally agree that it should be taught, but is there any reason that Christianity should be excluded from that teaching?
Okay, I'll tell you the one problem that plagues creationism, and specifically our intelligent design, which is what they want to call it now, is that if the intelligent design proponents were to come up with a testable, falsifiable, scientific theory of creation that could be subject to peer review and examined, the scientific community would love to see it. The problem that we've had, though, from the creationist community is that they haven't really come up with any sort of theory of creation. What they've done, the approach that the creationist community has taken, is simply one of attacking evolution. And with this idea that, well, if we can show flaws in evolution, then somehow the creationist perspective must win by default. And the problem is that that's not really how science is done. There are, again, when creationism becomes scientific in its approach, I think science will be happy to take it seriously. But as it seems to be right now, creationism seems for all the world to just be some sort of front to bring just religious beliefs into school under the guise of being science, and that's not really appropriate. I mean, if there are scientific evidence to support what creationists are their theories, please, let's see it. Yeah. But creationism hasn't been presenting that. What creationism has is this sort of attack force of people who sort of go after their perceived flaws in evolutionary biology and take it from that perspective.
Which is a big problem that I have with the creation theory and the teaching of it, is that it doesn't really have very many arguments of its own at all. The only thing that it does is rely on numbers, as in, wow, look at the vast improbabilities of all this stuff happening. Isn't it really amazing? And two, that evolution is wrong. And, look at all these problems with it. Look, carbon dating doesn't work. And, they try and find all these holes, but they don't actually do anything at all to prove that creation actually happened. They just say, look at problems with evolution. That does absolutely nothing to prove your point.
Yeah. Now, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with religion being taught in schools in the environment of a comparative religions class.
Oh,
Sociology,
of course.
Or a humanities class, or just a world religions class, sociology, like you put it up, like you put it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But if it's all theories about how life began aren't necessarily scientific theories.
Yeah.
A theory doesn't get to be a scientific theory unless it's got actual scientific work that's been put into it.
Yeah.
And until a theory has been presented that meets what a theory has to be scientific. In other words, testable, falsifiable. You have to, you have to be able to, under a controlled condition, repeat the results, and it has to have predictive power.
Yeah.
And we don't really see any of that coming from creationism. So until that happens, just creationism remains something that I just don't think belongs in biology. But hey, humanities, fine. Comparative religions, fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark, for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're being asked to take Derrick first on line 2. Derrick, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up?
Just hanging.
Yeah, hard hearing you between the TV and the phone.
Okay. So what can I do for you?
I had a question for you. You were saying earlier that there was no extra biblical history for even the existence of Jesus.
Well, I don't know of any, but I mean, there might be some. Is there some?
Well, I was just reading a book recently, and there's actually 2 of them. They're very brief. They're like one-liners. One of them's Roman, and one of them, God, what's that guy's name? He was a Jewish historian.
Josephus?
Flavius Josephus.
Yeah.
Josephus is a fraud.
Yeah.
The Josephus reference is a fraud. It is accepted as a fraud by pretty much all, even biblical scholars.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That one I didn't know. But there was another reference of him in a Roman writer. I mean, it was like one line, and they just called him a sorcerer, which, but I mean, there is
right.
at least mention of him somewhere else.
But there...
Is it Cassius? Tacitus.
Tacitus,
would it be? Again, I don't think that the existence or non-existence of Jesus as a man is that vital or is that implausible an idea. Again, even if we were talking earlier on about this ossuary, even if this ossuary or any sort of evidence, even if we found out tomorrow that we had 100% reliable historical evidence that yes, in fact, Jesus Christ existed as a man, well, then that's fine. All we've proved is that the world's largest religion had a real guy that inspired it. That's not so implausible. But we are no closer to proving any of the supernatural claims. That ossuary, had it been 100% genuine, still wouldn't have proved that Jesus walked on water. It still wouldn't have proved that he fed hundreds of people with a single loaf of bread and a fish. It wouldn't have proved that he raised people from the dead and cured the blind. It wouldn't have proved that he did many of the miraculous things attributed to him. So we'd still be no closer to any evidence of the divine than we are right now. Even if we find out tomorrow that there was a real flesh and blood guy walking around, which I don't, I'm not close to that idea. A lot of atheists, it's atheists even debate amongst themselves about how important that is.
I'm not close to the idea. I just don't think, I don't believe Jesus existed as he is represented in the Bible. Even without the supernatural stuff, I don't think he was one individual. There's too many things. For example, everything attributed to Jesus, virgin birth, crucified by the quote-unquote government. All these things are also true of Mithra. They're also true of Osiris. They're true of so-called deities that existed hundreds of years before Christ.
And Mithraism was a very prominent religion in the area when Jesus is said during that said to have been his time.
There are too many similarities between the Jesus myth and the Mithra myth to claim that Jesus existed, but Mithra didn't. I mean, you can't use evidence for...
And there are other stories of crucified messianic figures or sacrificed people who were martyred for their teachings.
Right.
So there's really nothing all that unusual, especially given the time and the various beliefs that were active at that time. So.
Okay, then how would you explain the explosive growth of Christianity right after this time?
That would be a guy named, first start off with a guy named Paul.
Exactly.
He is, I think, probably more a more influential figure in the history of Christianity than Christ himself was, and then I guess it just it took on a life of its own. It became organized. It became, I think, like so many religions before it, a path to power for various groups for people in the priesthood. So I mean, it's not.
It worked out great for Paul.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah,
a huge part of his life in prison, and he got killed. That's the kind of job you want to get.
Well, I mean, that's certainly not.
Happened to lots of religious martyrs.
Yeah, it's certainly not the life that I would want. But I mean, I think Paul was definitely a man who saw in this faith a path to, power and influence, and I mean, he got it eventually. I mean, there's no denying that.
Yeah. Christianity didn't spread that rapidly until Augustine took it as the religion of the Roman Empire.
Well, no, Constantine.
I'm sorry, Constantine, right, Constantine.
But I mean, but for it to have gotten that far, for
gotten that far is an impressive feat for a religion.
Yeah,
no one doubts that.
Okay.
So I mean, it became just organized very, very quickly, and I think that Christianity, I think, became a thing that rallied, the enemies, as it were, of the Roman Empire. I mean, you had the Jews in Judea; they were a province; they were conquered. None of the conquered provinces of the Roman Empire wanted to be conquered provinces,
right.
And so, these were things that could just bring sort of a sense of, nationalism, and if you will, just a sense of your own cultural pride to the Jews at the time. Just sort of like, this is the thing that brings us together. To we can fight the Romans finally, or what have you. I mean, it's just, again, I don't know. I don't pretend to be a biblical scholar, so I can't really. I'm just giving you my impressions of it. But just from what I've read, that's. Clearly, the church very quickly got some organization behind it. I think there were some extremely influential early Christian writers like Origen, people who were instrumental in getting the religion going. So,
one more quick question though.
Yeah.
About the building the legend as it went on. Paul, one that you mentioned, he was teaching real soon after that. So most of the people that he was talking to were alive during all this, and they could have very easily found out by talking to the people that were actually there if he was lying or not, if all the stuff was made up, if all of his things that he accredited to Jesus actually doing were true or not. If he was actually a real person or not.
Yeah,
so,
and I think that's a good point you bring up, because an example that I always like to refer to is the whole story of the 500, the feeding of the and. What's curious is that we really sort of, in that passage, in Paul's writing, we really only have Paul's word to go with, on the...
And 500 people saw Jesus.
For verifying this story. And what I think would have gone a long way towards confirming this story and to giving it that much more credibility is, as you say, if there were people around at the time that Paul was starting to do his teaching, that he was writing his epistles and his books, why not go to those people? Let's get their names. Let's find out where they lived. Let's get their story. Let's get their first-hand eyewitness account. And let's put it all together. But instead, whose word do we have to go on about the story of the 500? We have Paul.
Well, I mean, he wasn't writing a history book.
Well, true, but 500 other people saw this. Where are their writings?
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of them were probably illiterate. That's fine. But still, we have one.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of Jewish writers of the time whose works survive, a lot of them, and none of them say anything about Jesus, none of them at all.
See, Origen never, the reason we know, getting back to the Josephus passage, why one reason that scholars suspect it's a fraud among many is that Origen, who is one of the most prominent first century Christian writers, never references it. So if Josephus's passage was like this important a document, why doesn't Origen talk about it? Origen would have been aware of it.
And Origen talks about Josephus. It's not like he wasn't aware of Josephus at all.
Yeah. So it's tricky. It's tricky getting to the historical Jesus. But again, I'll say to me that's not so much a crucial bedrock issue. I mean, for me, I'm just interested in, are the supernatural claims true? If they're not true, I'm going to continue to be an atheist. I don't have any problem with the idea that there may have been an actual messianic figure who either was the original Jesus or who was the guy who inspired the character who became Jesus in the Bible or what have you. I don't think that's really the bedrock issue.
Oh, now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Go away.
So anyway, hey, listen, we appreciate your call, but we want to go ahead and get to another couple guys, okay?
Hey, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Lou on one. We'll see what Lou has to say. Lou.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. A while ago you used the word tautological, and I certainly agree that term tends to typify a religion. And if I understand it right, what that amounts to is that you have a premise which justifies your conclusion, which justifies your next premise, which justifies your next conclusion ad infinitum. And that seems to be what much of this is amounting to. The other thing I was going to talk about, and then I'll hang up and let you all get another call or whatever, but years ago, and I'm an old timer in the Foxholes, right? And I was an atheist back then. And if somebody tells you, you know, that there were no atheists in Foxholes, I agree with Jeff. You know, without seeing the people in the tent. I've seen the people out of the tent in the Foxhole, okay, and they weren't happy about what was going on.
Well, we have one of our group's older, not to interrupt you really quickly, but just one of our group's older members, we have a Korean vet. And he
a combat vet. He wasn't just
combat. I mean, he saw action, and you know, the story he always used to like to say is that people, you know, they're always surprised when they hear that he's an atheist. And when he tells them about his military experience, it's like, but you know, when you were under fire, didn't you pray? And he said, well, no. And in fact, the guys in my unit who did all got shot. So,
well, some survived.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention was I used to work in a mental hospital. I'm in a big-time mental hospital when I was a student intern in the field of social work. And it was surprising and really amazing to me how many of the individuals who were in the paranoid schizophrenic category were tied up over religion. And we used to see them in our staffing sessions. And so many times we saw these people who would insist there were red devils in the room and this sort of thing. And then at the same time, what you would also see were little letters and things that they would write to their psychiatrist, in which they expressed, you know, these super sexual desires, actually, and all of this was accounted for, you know, by the fear and the unknowing and the whole mixed-upness of the illness. And while I'm not saying that all Christians, obviously, or all religious people are under the influence of
some sort of delusional mania,
lack of mentality, it certainly suggests to me that there is a strong element of this kind of thing that does exist in the whole religious picture. That it's the fear of death, it's the speculation of God, it's the speculation of what happens afterwards, it's the whole business of don't take this life away from me. I've watched your show a few times in the past, and I've noticed you all talk about the morality business and how an atheist can certainly adopt and develop moral credence in terms of life is short, precious, and let's have at it. Instead of worrying about what the next business is going to be. At any rate, I don't want to tie up your phone or calls or anything. Unless you've got a quick question for me, I'm off of here.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your input. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me though that the cultural influence that religion has had, that's so pervasive, would be reflective in the behaviors or what you hear coming from people who go mad, right?
Well,
I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that the religious beliefs made them mad, but let's face it, when you have a belief system that encourages the idea that there's devils and demons and all kinds of monsters waiting to get you if you don't watch out, I don't see how that's that there is a recipe for mental health.
Yeah, all right. In one man's opinion, over the years, I think, beginning with caveman or whoever our very primordial ancestors were, there may have developed this fear of the thing called death, which of course was well not understood and well feared. I mean, that was the greatest fear one could possibly have, not being eaten by a dinosaur, probably slipping off the cliff or something, but at any rate, it could well have been, if you consider there may have been well enough time for this actually to become genetically ingrained, a fear of death. And if a fear of death became genetically ingrained, and the answer to that fear was a God, then why not? Is maybe God not part of our genetic makeup?
Yeah,
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've heard similar arguments. I'm not quite sure I buy them all, but,
I don't
it's an interesting for speculation. Just really quickly before we go on to our next caller, I think that all life forms, but especially our own, we all have this evolved instinct for self-preservation.
Right.
So, but it is thought that human beings, with intelligence sort of is our niche in the big chain.
Right.
Are really among the only species, or probably the only species, who are aware of our own mortality. Yeah. And then it is thought that perhaps belief in an afterlife, which then ultimately evolved into became religion as civilization grew, began with primitive, people dreaming about friends and loved ones of theirs whom they knew to be dead.
Yeah.
And being primitive, thinking that, maybe we're getting some contact from some other realm. And so that's what one theory is about.
Well, we don't know any of that, of course, but at least that's my kind of speculation at this point.
Yeah.
I'm also open to new evidence.
All right, we appreciate your call, and so we're going to try to get another couple callers in the last few minutes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Going out like they came in, screaming and kicking. You can't whack death on the head. If he comes near me, I'm going to rip his nipples off.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Norman's Norman online too. Norman, hi. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are y'all?
All right.
Fine.
Good. Hey, just wanted to, Jeff is on my right.
Yes.
That's Jeff Jones,
Cool.
yes.
I just wanted to say that about the March on Washington, the words that you described it, that you used to describe about your own personal experience and going to that thing, sounds like almost like a religious experience.
I wouldn't say that at all. It's more. I would put it more in line with. I've been a political activist since I was 14 years old.
Right.
When you're around people who believe how you do about how the world works and how the world should work, it's not. I don't think it's a religious experience. I think it's a humanistic experience. Yes. I think it's the experience I had was reveling in humanity, not in supernatural. Yeah. So to me, it's not a religion at all.
Just emotionally uplifting to be around fellow, like-minded folks.
Like at church.
Well,
I know you don't, but what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I've been to church. I mean,
the words
I was
that
once
you use are very similar to church-going people who march on Washington too, who talk about, wow, it was one of the most, if not the most amazing experience of my life to see 2,000 other people who thought the same way that I did.
Yeah,
okay.
So
people say that coming off of roller coasters.
Yeah, they say that. I mean, they say they going to baseball games. So what? It's the feeling of being around of a bunch of people having an enjoyable time.
The difference is that you're not on a show, Ashley, that's talking about the joy of roller coasters.
Well, sure, there are lots of people who go on talking about the joy of roller coasters.
But people say that.
Is a little bit more important than just how much you like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
I'm still not sure I understand your point.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. I have no idea what your point is.
Okay, people who go to church are emotionally uplifted by going to church. People who get together in various groups with a common political focus have an uplifting experience getting together with people like that. People who go to amusement parks have uplifting experiences. People who go to family reunions have uplifting experiences. People who sit around and watch their favorite movie have uplifting experiences. I'm not sure I understand the point. So it was an uplifting experience. That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, big deal.
I'll tell you what.
I mean, I keep getting cut off when I say the point of what I'm trying to say is that you have to believe in something.
No.
You have to believe. Well, you have to believe in what?
Absence of belief has become a sort of belief, a type of.
Okay. Yes.
We don't have to believe anything supernatural.
Well, it's,
if you're willing to accept that the reason people have uplifting experiences in church is because they're around a bunch of people who think the way they do, I got no problem with that. In fact, I think that's exactly what's happening. I don't think it has anything to do with the supernatural. The difference between what we were doing in Washington and what you do in church is we don't think it comes from the supernatural. We think it comes from being around a bunch of people that we like. And that's what it comes down to. That's
I think that's a great part of what church is all about.
Yeah, okay.
The social aspect of church, I agree.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I remember when I grew up in church and did youth activities. They were fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
I had fun doing those. Yeah. People getting together, doing things that they like to do together is a fun thing to do.
That's why the ACA exists.
Yeah. So everybody finds little groups that they belong in and they feel like they belong in, and they feel uplifted belonging to them.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks. Right. Okay. Man. It's not really so. I mean, sort of like he was. Yeah, this whole idea about a lack of belief becoming belief. Look, yes, if you have to believe in something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the thing you have to believe in is supernatural or comes from some divine source. Right. Sometimes it's just, believing in, an ideal, or maybe in the idea that just people are good and being around people is good, isn't it? And thank you for coming on the show. It's good to have you on. We always feel good and feel uplifted doing this show and talking to fine folks like you. And thanks very much for joining us. We're here every Sunday, 4:30. See you next time. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, crew. Thanks, everyone. And Christians, as always, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Thanks. Bye. And we'll see you next time. Atheist Experience replay, 4:30.
4:30.
It's Tuesday.
Anyone out there, you're welcome to come to the bagel shop.
Atheists, yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.